Good Friday evening to everybody. I'm Mike Naso with the latest video update on the tropics. We have a new tropical storm out there. Its name is Marco, and it looks like it could be a problem for the Gulf Coast of the United States. Let's take a look at the latest on Marco as of 11 p.m. Hot off the presses from the National Hurricane Center. Marco was at 18.7 north, 84.9 west, winds of 40. The hurricane hunters have been flying out there and found pressures decreasing down to about 1,003 millibars or so. And so it is a tropical storm, and it's moving north-northwest at 13. Now that's important for a couple of reasons. You can see the forecast track here has it clipping the Yucatan by tomorrow night. And there is a hurricane watch and a tropical storm warning because there is the possibility it could become a hurricane. Unlikely, but possible. Right now it's in a pretty good environment, but it isn't intensifying the way it could be. Secondly, the tracks are kind of trending to the west. I'll show you that in a minute with the model guidance, but definitely down the road, Texas and even northern Mexico, you guys could be at more of a risk here if Marco makes his way further west. And so we're going to watch this very carefully. But again, it could be New Iberia, Louisiana. It could be Corpus Christi. Right now it looks like somewhere in the middle. But remember, it is not expected to become a hurricane anymore. It was forecast to be a hurricane. Now it is not expected to be a hurricane. It should be getting some heavy wind shear by the time Monday and Tuesday rolls around, which is great news. However, there will be some interaction with Laura as Laura makes her way towards the Gulf, and we'll talk about that as well. But right now, a tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch for the Yucatan, and a brand new tropical storm to watch. So it's a feature that is interesting nevertheless. Here's the latest infrared satellite, and you can see the center of Marco is right in here, and it has been bubbling and organizing, and the Hurricane Center noted the environment should be a little more favorable. It's got a very favorable wind shear pattern over it. It has kind of a ventilation here to the north from this abnormally strong August front that pulled down along the Gulf Coast. However, as that front moves out of the way, the ridging will build back towards the west, and that should push our Marco back westward towards Texas and the Gulf Coast, and that's why the track is doing that. However, right now you can see it definitely appears to be moving almost north. I mean, it's still officially north-northwest, but that is almost a northward motion. So if I lived in western Cuba, I'd be keeping a very close eye on Marco tonight. You can see that even better from this satellite perspective, the system blowing up right in there. So it is strengthening. It's looking much better organized, way better than Laura. Laura looks horrible. I'll show you that in a second. But you can see here the front draped to the north, kind of helping the northern outflow here, but it just hasn't strengthened the way we thought it would, and that's why it is only a minimal tropical storm at this time. The computer models, as I mentioned with Marco, they're starting to trend west. They want to take the system up and then westward, up and then westward. And that's an indication that, number one, the system might be weak. When you see this kind of bent shape in here that is kind of milling around, that means that it's kind of losing itself, and that's an indication of them forecasting a weaker system. On the other hand, some of the models want to take Marco towards a strong hurricane towards Louisiana and Texas. So it's really all a wait and see game. Right now, clearly that track has been slowly progressing to the west, and we'll see if it goes even further west by tomorrow. Something to watch, though. Right now, the key messages with Marco, number one, it is forecast to strengthen through tomorrow as it approaches the northeast Yucatan, and we have a hurricane watch and a tropical storm warning in that area. Number two, it is expected to move into the south central Gulf as a tropical storm Sunday, and although some strengthening is anticipated, weakening is forecast as it approaches the northwest Gulf on Tuesday, but it is still too early to know the location and magnitudes, and interests on the Gulf Coast should watch that. You can see it would probably be Monday or Tuesday at the earliest tropical storm force winds would start to impinge on the Gulf Coast. Now we go to Laura. As of 11 p.m., Laura was at 17.0 north, 63.5 west, wind still 45, moving west-northwest at 18, and it looks awful. Tropical storm force conditions in the Virgin Islands, however, it does not appear to have a good center. The recon have been flying out there trying to get all the data they can, and they've said Laura is way further to the west than we thought, and the south. Remember, we were talking yesterday about it being north of Puerto Rico and the Dominican as a strengthening storm headed to Florida. Now, this thing's coming in south of Puerto Rico, maybe over the Dominican. That's great news for one reason. If the system stays over land, it cannot strengthen. I mean, maybe if it's as weak as it is now, it could kind of tighten up a little, but it's not going to be a major hurricane. Whereas a track to the north would have been, my goodness, a major hurricane into Miami possible. And the same thing with the south. If it took a southern track, we could have a major hurricane in the Caribbean. You ain't going to get a hurricane, let alone a major one, if it stays over land. However, heavy rainfall, gusty winds, and that's why we have those tropical storm warnings from the islands all the way to the Bahamas, and tropical storm watch for the central Bahamas right now. You can see by Monday night, Laura, whether it's off western Cuba or off the Florida Keys, should be making her way into the Gulf, and conditions should be favorable at least enough to strengthen it into a hurricane and take aim at the Gulf Coast by Tuesday or Wednesday. But again, it could be the Panhandle, it could be Texas, and we don't know what's going to come of Laura by then. The satellite imagery, you can see right there, it looks like, oh wow, Mike, this thing's blowing up. Not really. You saw the track, the center is somewhere in here where I circled, and this kind of blow up here, this bee sting blow up on the right side, Laura looks awful, I gotta tell you. And the thinking is that this disorganization, while causing heavy rain, will keep it in check the next couple of days as it moves over the greater Antilles. Nevertheless, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, you guys are in for some heavy rain. Remember, the Dominican Republic had a lot of flooding with Isaias going over it just a couple of weeks ago. So it is not the strength of the system when it comes to the rainfall, it's the size and how fast it's moving. And Laura is moving along, but it's disorganized enough to where it's kind of persisting in one area. Here's another view of it, and you can see it's got to get its act together. There is some convection blowing up here, so maybe we'll see something. And if it takes a southern enough track, even though it will get knocked out over Hispaniola, it could get organized before then. So we're going to wait and see. It's still late August, and those waters are really hot. The bottom line with Laura right now, number 1, tropical storm conditions expected. Northern leewards, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico through tomorrow. Also the north coast of the Dominican and Haiti, Turks, Caicos, southeast Bahamas into Sunday, and heavy rainfall as mentioned. Life-threatening mudslides and flash flooding and urban flooding are possible through Sunday. Number 2, tropical storm conditions possible through the central Bahamas Sunday night. And number 3, in the long range, is uncertain. Laura is forecast to move near or over portions of the greater Antilles through Monday. However, it could bring surge, rainfall, and wind to Cuba, the Bahamas, and Florida, and the Gulf Coast by the middle of next week. All interests there should monitor the progress of Laura and updates over the next couple of days. The wind shear is why the Laura has not been looking too good. You can see 20 knots over the top of it on this map. It's really having problems, in contrast to our Marco right there, which is under more of a favorable pattern, as I mentioned. However, wind shear will increase for Marco and should decrease later on for Laura. So for Laura, the problem is land interaction right now. You can see the models pretty much want to keep it over land until it gets to about 85 west, and it spits off of Cuba. And from there, some of them have trended more towards a Texas, Louisiana, which would keep it over water much longer. You can see here the GFS model. This is kind of scary. Has it disorganized? Look what happens in the Gulf. Boom! Powerful hurricane, a major hurricane slamming Louisiana. That's the GFS model. Check this out. This is the Hurricane HMON. Look at this. A Category 4 or 5 in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, take it with a grain of salt. We don't have anything there yet, but that would be a scary sight. And then, of course, the HWRF model, which did very well with Hanna, wants to bring it ashore as a major Category 4 right on the border of Mississippi and Alabama by the time Wednesday rolls around. So, given a word to the wise, I'd be overlooking the hurricane plans in case Laura has something up her sleeve. But right now, the thinking is something over land the next 3 days, and then uncertainty in the Gulf. And there's going to be some interaction with Marco as well. But that'll do it for the tropics this Friday night. Stay tuned. We'll have frequent coverage here on IPR 365. Please like and subscribe and share the link. We'll have the latest on our 2 tropical storms, Laura and Marco. Stay tuned.